Good morning, everybody. This is Kristi Park from Texas Digital Library. Welcome to the October TDL Forum. We are going to go ahead and get started, and I think we'll probably have a few more folks join us as we go along. But I did want to just say a warm welcome to everybody who's here, and I see that Stephanie has a sad face already in her name label. This is the final TDL member forum for our assistant director Ryan Steens, and we're all pretty sad about that here at TDL as well. But I am joined today by Ryan, of course, our assistant director, also Courtney Mumma, who's on the phone from Rhode Island. She is there teaching a digital preservation management workshop, or co-teaching it. And Lea DeForest, our TDL communication strategist, is here with us in Austin. And we're also joined by Kara Long, the metadata and cataloging librarian at Baylor University Libraries, who's going to give us an update on some metadata related news for TDL. As always, if you have questions or comments as we go along, feel free to put those in the chat window, and we'll take a moment to answer them as we have time to do that. I will warn you, we have a lot to go over today, and we may go a little past our normal 30-minute window. So if we get to 11 and you need to sign off, we will understand. But we will continue recording if we go over, and you can come back and update yourself that way. We also have the slides available for download in the Files pod in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and you can download those there. All right. So our agenda today starts with me giving a fairly lengthy update on our member board meeting and some other news, things going on at TDL. And then Kara will pop in to talk about some news regarding our metadata community. Courtney will give us updates on digital preservation training opportunities, and Lea will wrap things up with some upcoming events. And then hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A. Okay. This looks like a lot of different things that I'm going to go over, but it's really just two main things. One is I want to give you an update on the TDL member board meeting at TCAL, which is the Texas Council of Academic Libraries, and pass on some of the information that we shared with deans and directors there, including our 2017 accomplishments and our goals for the next year. And then secondly, I want to talk with you about our big news of the last week or so, which we've already referenced, the departure of our colleague Ryan Steens and our plans for not filling his shoes, which are impossible to fill, but moving on in the interim. But first we'll talk about TCAL. So TCAL is the organization within TLA that represents academic libraries, and its annual meeting, which is held in the fall each year here in Austin, is attended by the administrative heads of libraries or their representatives. And TDL holds its annual member board meeting in conjunction with TCAL each year. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and what we shared with our member deans and directors there. But I also want to note, I also presented at the larger TCAL meeting this year on a survey I conducted via the TCAL email lists of academic libraries in Texas and their engagement with work around open educational resources. I reported on the results of that survey, and my presentation slides are linked to from this slide if you're interested. There were, in fact, a number of panels and presentations at TCAL about OER. There was a panel of administrators from institutions whose libraries are actively working on OER projects, as well as a presentation from Doug Jansen of the Higher Education Coordinating Board on the legislation that was passed in the most recent legislative session to fund a small grant program to encourage OER use. And also it funded a feasibility study to assess the need for and resources needed to develop a statewide OER repository. So there was a lot of discussion about OER at TCAL this year. But for now, I want to focus on what we talked about with the members. This is the list of attendees for our member board meeting. We had wonderful attendance. We had representatives, I think, from all of our regular member libraries there. And at this meeting, we did a number of things. We introduced and welcomed 2 new members to our governing board, which is the smaller body that represents our larger membership, and we elect several members from the non-ARL libraries to represent those folks on the governing board. Those new members are Kate Radowski, the library director from Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and Kelly Gonzalez, the assistant vice president for library resources at UT Southwestern Medical Center. We also shared some I will share some highlights today from our annual report. We reported out on our accomplishments over the last year and goals for the coming year. Courtney gave some updates on new services for digital preservation and the TDR. And as always with this meeting, we take the opportunity to recognize all of our members who are working on committees and working groups and users groups, and showered them with praise to our member deans and directors. I'm going to skip over very quickly a couple of slides here just for the sake of time, but I'll just note we shared some statistics about the collections that we host through our various services and the growth of those services. And we also reviewed our strategies from our TDL 2020 strategic plan, which you can review as you have time. We also reviewed our accomplishments of the past year and took stock of how far we've come and what we've got left to do. And this slide and the next one outline what we've accomplished, and each one of these is tied to a specific objective that we set for ourselves in 2017. And these all represent things that goals that we met or came very close to meeting. We began implementation of our new membership structure this year. We added a couple of new members. Our goal was to add 2 new members, and we welcomed Texas Women's University in 2017. We also had Stephen F. Austin upgrade from affiliate membership to full membership, and we've still got a little time left in 2017 to see who else we can get to join the TDL family. We also hired Lea as our communications strategist to help with recruitment and communications efforts. And we launched the TDR and onboarded 9 institutional users of that service. That's one more than the goal that we set for ourselves. And we formed the TDR steering committee to guide the service and develop a roadmap for it, help us develop a roadmap for it. We hired Courtney to manage our digital preservation services and provide consulting and training for our members, and she has helped us clarify and communicate our service offering and recruited 4 additional institutional users of our DigiPres services. Also related to digital preservation, we joined the Chronopolis Preservation Network and implemented that successfully as a non-commercial option for digital preservation storage. And then a couple of things not specifically tied to goals, but that I wanted to mention nonetheless. We hosted a couple of great events over the last year, including the TDL Data Symposium at Baylor Libraries last fall, and the 10th Texas Conference on Digital Libraries in the spring. And we helped establish and coordinate a couple of groups, user groups, the South Central States Fedora Users Group and the ATEX Users Group, with leadership, and importantly, with leadership from community members who are really responsible for driving that, and we support it. We're still working on a couple of things. So these things here are related to goals that we set that we haven't yet quite checked off the list, but we're still working on them. We had hoped to be farther along in revamping our training programs for core services like DSpace, OJS, and Vireo. And because of turnover and other priorities taking precedence, we're still working on those projects and will continue to do so. We wanted to fill a few key positions, and we successfully did that with our open senior system administrator and our communications position, but we're still working on that software engineer position. And of course, a couple of other positions have opened up in the meantime. So this is going to be an ongoing goal and task for us. And finally, Vireo 4 development has been slowed down by a couple of factors, not least of which is that open software engineer position. So we are especially thankful to Texas A&M and the Vireo users group and contributors from Baylor and Texas State and Texas Tech, led by Stephanie Larison and Billy Peterson-Lugo, who have really kept that work progressing. And we're really close to having a testable release of Vireo 4 sometime after the first of the year. So we'll be providing more information about that progress in the next forums and definitely through the Vireo users group mailing list. So if you're interested in keeping up with that, be sure you're enrolled in that VUG mailing list. And finally, from our annual reporting out to the member board, I wanted to highlight some goals that we've set for ourselves in 2018. And there are quite a few of these that are broken into, on this slide and the next, different categories. We have some funding goals. We have set for ourselves the goal of recruiting and onboarding 4 additional institutional members this year or next year. And we're trying to increase the number and amount of sponsorships for the Texas Conference on Digital Libraries in order to break even on that event. We want to retain all our current members and upgrade them when possible, and continue to transform our training programs in ways that leverage members and community expertise and incentivize member participation. We have a number of organizational effectiveness goals to help us be more efficient and transparent and effective. We're looking to implement a CRM for constituent management and some other tools for managing contract workflows. Our tech team has been working with some tools like Jira and Confluence to do better project tracking and to increase transparency across our staff organization and with all of our members across the TDL community. And of course, we want to get better at filling and keeping filled those vacant staff positions. With services, we have grand plans and achievable goals here for a number of our services. We want to continue growth with our digital preservation and data repository and improvements that are in alignment with roadmaps for those services. We want to upgrade all of our hosted services in 2018 to the latest versions, including Vireo to Vireo 4. And we're working on achieving greater integration of existing services with an emphasis on easing workflows to our preservation systems. So for instance, getting content from your DSpace repository into preservation systems. And that's an important focus for us over the next year. We are exploring Haiku direct hosting through a limited pilot project in the spring and transitioning our expanded DPLA hub from a prototype to a production-ready service. And finally, this last one under services was added to the list after our member board meeting and after TCAL because of the enthusiasm and engagement of the members there about open educational resources. So we're going to be exploring possible TDL roles for supporting OER through a working group that is forming right now, and there will be more information about that in future forums. We also have some infrastructure related goals that are kind of under the hood, systems architecture goals that Ryan has spoken about at previous forums. Our senior sysadmin, Clark Kim, is engaged with a project to do some re-architecting of our systems within Amazon Web Services to make them more secure and more cost-effective, and to help us achieve greater standardization in the deployment and management of services. So this is a lot. I mean, in terms of information to kind of throw at you today, And each one of these we could probably dig down and spend a lot of time in, and we will try to do that over the course of the next TDL forums and other opportunities to kind of highlight and drill down into some of these, in particular, these services goals. But we wanted to put it in front of you today so that you know what our priorities are for the next year. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to talk about today was just the news that I trust everyone saw, an email announcement that came out earlier this week about our Assistant Director, Ryan Steens, leaving TDL at the end of this month to take a new position as the Community Manager of Avalon. Avalon is an open source project within the academic library community that manages and provides access to large collections of digital audio and video collections. And it's run out of Indiana University Bloomington and Northwestern, although Ryan will be able to continue to work here from Austin, so we're grateful for that. His last day is October 27th, and you know, this is of course bittersweet news for us. We are thrilled for Ryan and this opportunity for him, and know that Avalon is getting the best possible person to develop its open source community. But we are really sad to see him go, all of us, both personally and professionally. He's been with TDL since 2008, since I started at TDL, a little bit longer than me. And he's been a tremendous leader, and especially in terms of transforming our technical operations into a service-oriented, member-focused, you know, well-functioning team. And so we're grateful for his service. I don't have time today to go into all the ways that he served TDL, but I know that all of you know what a valuable colleague he is, and that you'll join me in thanking him for his service. He'll be in Austin, so we're going to insist that he come to TCDL in the spring, so everybody will have a chance to see him there. And of course, he'll be around the academic library community in his new position, and so everyone will have opportunities to continue to work with Ryan over the course of the next phase of his career. Yeah, Danielle, he can absolutely present on Avalon at TCDL. We've already talked about that. So, and you know, there are opportunities with the South Central States Fedora users group and other Fedora, because Avalon is a Fedora-based system, to continue to participate in many of the communities that we're a part of here in Texas and elsewhere. So one of the things I'm grateful to Ryan for is putting in place a really strong team here on the technical side that can ably see us through this transition. And so I wanted to just take a minute to mention here that we have several folks on the TDL staff who will be stepping up and taking on some extra responsibilities in the interim. Courtney Mumma, our services manager, will be taking on additional duties related to her main service areas of DigiPres and data repository. She'll also be taking on the leadership of the Haiku hosting pilot project that will happen in the spring. And Clark Kim, our senior DevOps lead, will be assuming some extra duties related to day-to-day operations of the tech staff. And I'll take on some oversight related to our core services of DSpace, OJS, and Vireo. We also, of course, have a great group of technical staff and help desk staff outside of these specific folks that I've mentioned, who will be stepping up to make sure our help desk and technical support operations continue to run smoothly. And I want to thank Courtney and Clark and all of our team here for taking on some extra work in the meantime as we say goodbye to Ryan and prepare for our next steps. So I want to just pause before we move on to see if there are any questions or concerns about anything that I've talked about before I pass it on to Kara. Okay. Well, I think that is more than enough of me talking, so I'll happily pass it over to Kara Long, who, as I mentioned, is metadata and cataloging librarian at Baylor Libraries, who's going to talk for just a moment about some exciting news about the metadata the metadata community within TDL. Kara has very graciously agreed to serve as the chair of our TDL metadata community, and I'm going to hand it over to her now to give us a little update on what's going on there.
Good morning. I hope you can all hear me. I'm very happy to announce the revival of the TDL metadata community. We hope that this group can be a resource and a space for TDL member librarians and other metadata practitioners. The purpose and goals of the group are to provide updates on TDL projects that may have special significance to metadata folks, to help facilitate conversation and provide a space to ask questions of each other and provide support on metadata related work, and also as a way for the community to give feedback to TDL on any metadata related issues that you would like to see perhaps a working group tackle, or for there to be some kind of training or support that TDL could explore in that way. So we hope to use the TDL metadata listserv as the primary forum for these activities, and the list hasn't seen much activity in recent times, so be on the lookout and expect to see more messages coming from that list, and I hope that many of you will contribute to the conversation. One of the ways that we would like to promote discussion and engagement in addition to the listserv is to host and moderate a Twitter chat. So the date for the first Twitter chat is yet to be determined, but we will have a set of questions in advance and a hashtag to follow so the flow of conversation is easy to keep up with. So please stay tuned to the listserv for updates on when that will be happening and some guidance on how to participate if you are new to participating in Twitter chats. And that's all I have for my updates. I hope that you all will participate or let other folks at your institutions know who might be interested in engaging in that kind of metadata related discussion. And with that, I will go back to Kristi. Yes, they can absolutely email me directly.
Hi, everybody from Providence, Rhode Island, where I am currently teaching the current iteration of the Digital Preservation Management Workshop with Nancy McGovern and Kari Smith from MIT Libraries, which will be coming to you by way of Trinity University Libraries next July from the 22nd through the 27th of July in my hometown of San Antonio, Texas. There are only 28 slots available, 3 of which are taken up by folks from Trinity. So really 25 outside of Trinity. So the application is now online. We have shared that link out with all of y'all via 2 of our email lists, so our TDL announcement list and also our digital preservation list. And so this is, again, an application form. The team who's giving the workshop reviews that application, and then registration follows that. We've got a due date for the application, Friday, December 1st, and the reason we did this so far in advance is to make sure that everyone could arrange to have resources aligned so that they were able to get everything in order to come to the workshop in July. So we're really excited about this. Planning is already underway, and we really hope that as many of you as possible can come. It's cheaper for our members, and we're going to keep it limited to members until we fill up with TDL members, and then we'll expand it to outside of our community if we don't fill up with TDL members. So then the other things I want to tell you about, we've done 2 already in our series of DigiPres webinars talking about our digital preservation services in great detail and giving y'all time to ask some questions. All of them are 30 minutes with an open Q&A. We've been trying to make that Q&A 10 minutes at the end of each session. The next one is going to be November 3rd. The reason for the gap is because during October there are lots of conferences. I'm in Providence now, and next week I'm away as well, and so are many of these other folks who are teaching for us. So November 3rd and November 10th, both are Fridays. Both of these are at 2 p.m. The first is with Mary Molinaro, who's the Executive Director for DEEPN, the Digital Preservation Network, and the other one is with Sybil Schaefer, who is at UCSD, and she's the lead there for Chronopolis, of which many of you are aware we're also a node now. All of the past webinars, the slides, and the video recording, including the Q&A sessions, are now available, and you can find them at this link here on our website. So far, I've done an overview, and we've had Heather Greer-Klein from DuraCloud talk about DuraCloud, specifically DuraCloud at TDL, in fact. Other events coming up. So right now, as I mentioned, I'm here in Rhode Island. So I can answer any questions about this workshop and the updates to it that we'll see for Trinity, if any of you have any questions before you apply. The Archivematica camp looks like it's going to be in November of next year. We don't have exact dates yet, but that's going to be hosted by the University of Houston. I'm the co-chair of the program committee for the IPRES 2018 conference in Boston, Massachusetts, and that's hosted by MIT and Harvard together, and some of the events will be in Cambridge and some in Boston. And then PASIG 2018, I've been on the steering committee for that for 2 years running now, and the program committee for 2 years, and I'm staying on the steering committee and advising the program committee for the Mexico City PASIG, which is October 16th through 18th next year, so I really hope we get a good Texas presence there, and wanted to make y'all aware of that, to go ahead and note that in your calendar for next year. And that's all I have for today. I'm going to hand over to Leah.
Okay. Hey there, everyone. So first off, today is the 3rd and final day of Fedora Camp. We've had about 30 people here in Austin learning about Fedora the past 3 days. And we want to thank all those participants for attending and give a big thank you to DuraSpace for putting on this event. As Courtney mentioned, next week she and Kristi will be presenting at the Digital Library Federation 2017 Forum and National Digital Stewardship Alliance DigiPres Forum. They travel to Pittsburgh to speak to the DLF and NDSA communities about how TDL and members like you guys are collaborating to share resources and infrastructure. And Courtney will be debuting the Texas Levels of Preservation, which we'll talk more about in a future forum. Next month is TDL's Fall Governing Board meeting. That's going to be here in Austin, Friday, November 10th. And finally, we'd like to invite you to submit a proposal to this year's Texas Conference on Digital Libraries. All TDL members are invited to submit a proposal, and please share our CFP among your networks and on social media. You head over to tdl.org/tcdl to learn more about this year's theme, our keynote speaker, Dr. King Davis, and register. And please email me if you have any questions.
Thanks, Leah. And thanks, Courtney and Kara, for all the great information. We are at 11:01, but we will hang on here for a second. So if you have any questions for any of us, for Courtney or me or Leah or Kara, now's the time. You can enter those into the chat window. Or for Ryan. Ryan's here as well.
Howdy.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in this month. We will be here again in November, the third Wednesday of November at 10:30. We'll be back. And if you have any questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Bye-bye, everybody.